As you watch this video, right now, Riven is in all-time low of popularity. It's been more than 10 years since she has been released. In this video, I will cover what happened for a champion with a 25% popularity to drop until the spot she is right now. Let's get into it. Riven was released on the 14th of September 2011 during Season 2 of League of Legends. She was a very unique champion for that time and used to be played like a tank on release, maxing W first, E second, and building tank items to peel for ADCs. Riven had long cast times on Ultimate and W. Riven evolved as a champion when someone named Face was building damage-wrecking high elo top laners. Maxing Q first, his Riven looked insane since he was doing 2 times the usual damage Riven used to do on other players' hands. He was utilizing Riven's passive by using auto, using Q, and then doing something else. Really different from other Rivens at the date, it was really fast and it started to get popular and known as Fast Q Mechanic. Later on, people found the player Face streaming on Twitch. With time, this player ended up being someone most people know today as Best Riven NA. On his stream, people found out he was doing it by using a move command after every Q. This went viral and turned out as a bug. Riot thought that Fast Q was good with how Riven is as a character, so they kept the feature. After this, Riven started to get more popular, and so did Boxbox stream. His stream was pretty fun and entertaining, always playing at his limits and doing crazy outplays against known players on the NA server, which was really popular at that specific time for the amount of content creators on the server. How Riven got to her peak was when another Riven appeared in Vision. Worlds in that year took place in North America, and solo queue people spotted an unknown player called Barcode Killer with a Riot account destroying everything on his way with Riven, having insane win rate and outplays in NA high elo, making people wonder who he was. Barcode Killer turned out to be Faker, later bringing Riven mid in pro scenes and making insane plays with Riven in pro. League was on a more oriented burst meta in those seasons.
Oh my god, wow! What the fuck? Best Riven NA move over! There's a new god in town. Just wanted to point out that there was someone else who was pretty good at Riven.
And with her 2.5 seconds huge shield, fast item spikes, burst damage, and crowd control, she was a great counter to mid-lane assassins. During this times, Riven itemization was very different. We had an item called Brutalizer, which is like Warhammer and Serrated Dirk combined in a cheaper 1337 gold item, which made Riven spike extremely early into the game. Combined with pro play popularity, people would find Korean Riven montages on YouTube from people like Lord Master King, showing everyone what the champion could do at the current time. After a player like Faker playing Riven and showing the entire world in pro stage what Riven was able to do, it eventually gained more popularity, and in consequence, got nerfed, buffing her passive Q and W, but also nerfing E's Riven shield duration from the 2.5 seconds duration to the current 1.5 seconds everyone knows. Even after this, Riven was decently strong and playable in the pro scene. In 2015, Season 5, Riven was still quite popular. Players like Caps, who at that time was called Baby Faker for being a young-age prodigy mid-laner, would include Riven into his champ pool, because the champion was one from the coolest things League of Legends had. The champion offered a lot of potential, pros knew it, and everyone was willing to play it.
And as many know, when someone does something cool or something fancy, people will say, "Oh, you're a Faker." And then because of my age, I think people started saying like, "Oh, Baby Faker."
Faker came to Europe for Season 5 Worlds and found Caps in solo queue. Both of them wanted to practice Riven. Faker picked Riven on that match, which made the young Caps a bit passionate about the fact of getting Riven stolen, which made him write to his enemy, "Random steals my Riven," just for Faker to teach him what a fully mastered Riven for Season 5 looked like. In Season 6, the item known as Brutalizer would be removed, Riven being one of the most affected champions by this change and losing the item that made her spike extremely fast into the game. During Season 6, the NA ladder suffered an invasion. We will call this event the QQ invasion. The entire NA ladder was filled with username like QQ followed by numbers. Every page you checked on the OP, GG, High, Elo ladder had a QQ username on it. Over all those players, we had 3 Riven players with an insane win rate on Challenger sitting on top of the ladder. It wasn't an easy job. Over all the QQ accounts, you could find insanely skilled players on champions like Yasuo. But that wouldn't be a problem for the Riven players. The 3 of them sitting on top of the NA ladder and showing what Riven could do once fully mastered. Since they were promoting boosting services, all of them got manually banned after reaching front page on League of Legends Reddit, making the entire community wonder who those 3 Riven gods were. Adrian Riven helped a lot with keeping the Riven popularity up. He is an exceptional player that loves to have fun while fighting his opponent. With almost unmatched Riven mechanics, he started to gain popularity, showing that the champion could go even past the limits the current Challenger players knew about Riven. In consequence, he became a big reference for the Riven community. Viper was getting known as popular Riven streamer during this time, keeping up with Adrian Riven. Being Challenger, streaming for a lot of hours in a row and reaching rank 1 multiple times over the course of years. If someone deserves the spot of rank 1 Riven in the NA server, that's Viper. When the new rune system first came out, there was no Conqueror, which made Riven be in a weird spot. Electrocute and Airy was the first 2 runes people were playing, but it didn't work as well as Fervor of Battle, which was like the current Conqueror, but without healing effect. Conqueror on release would transfer 20% of your damage dealt to true damage, which made her able to deal with tanks without problems. This made Riven come back to her peak of gameplay, with players like Viper, Adrian Riven, and Revenge reaching the top of the ladder by spamming Riven. After some time, Conqueror ended up being completely broken and abused by all champions, getting nerfed to 12% true damage, then to 8% true damage until true damage was completely removed from the keystone. Riven was still playable during that time since tanks had no good first items, but she would now be left with only AD damage on her kit, which slowly started to be a problem for some players. During this times, NA was more popular than EU. A lot of Riven streamers played on the NA server. EU also had their Riven masterpieces. With the new rune system in Season 8, Alois had a lot of eyes on him for his unique playstyle with a rune no one else played, starting the trend of Klepto Riven every game and getting insane leads in Challenger Elo with that keystone. Ruven was a really consistent German Riven one-trick that streamed in English. He guided the Riven community, helped everyone creating the biggest matchup list, which is still a reference for players today. He was really passionate about the game, being Challenger for 6 seasons in a row and peaking rank 3 on the BuiltEUW server on Season 10. Ruven stated that he loved the game and he would never stop playing it until someone better than him appeared in the scene. It took some time, but it happened. As we get closer to Season 11, there's a Riven player named Built that was stomping everything on his way, outplaying every situation with his insane mechanical level on Riven, awakening a lot of interest on the champion, even after all the years that passed since Riven release. He ended up taking the throne of Ruven in Season 12 and claiming himself as the rank 1 Riven player from EU with almost 1700 LP. I don't believe this is the reason why Ruven left the game, but the thing is, he doesn't play solo queue anymore or stream. Thank you for everything you did, Ruven. Mythic items are introduced into the game on Season 11. Hydra active getting removed and placed in another item named Gore Drinker. Gore Drinker was really good on release, giving AD based on missing health, which made Riven outplay potential crazy. It slowly got nerfed. Death's Dance was different, but still one of her main items. It healed for 15% of your damage dealt, which was really good for Riven. It slowly got changed to be a better item for most champions. Riven build was slowly losing more and more damage while gaining durability, which puts her far away from what she used to be. Durability patch was really bad for Riven. It buffed the resistances of every single champion in the game, which benefits champions like Fiora or Darius. But this patch was one of the hardest hits in League history for Riven, with the last balance changes of recent patches to fighter items, making fighter items less damage-oriented with more changes towards durability, making Doran Blade more efficient and the go-to starter item for most AD laners. All this changes make other fighters more tanky and snowballing way harder. Over the history of Riven, her strongest times were when she had a good first item, so she could actively start to play the game and impact the map. All this seasons of League of Legends slowly delayed her spikes, going from spiking at 1337 gold with Brutalizer to spiking at first item, to having some versatility in runes for different playstyles, to becoming a 3-item scaling bruiser champion with Gory Drinker, Black Cleaver, and Death's Dance, to the current version of 3-item Spike Riven, which buys Hydra, into Black Cleaver and Eclipse. She was from the first 90 champions released in League of Legends. At the current date, we have 165 champions, Briar being the last one. Riven was one of the only champions of her kind on release. Really high damage, high mobility, and endless outplay potential. Most people who wanted a champion like that would play Riven and, in consequence, top lane or mid lane, since there was almost no other champion or role that offered the same as her kit in the game. Today we have a lot of similar champions that offer the same as Riven in different lanes, without committing to all the effort she takes. So it's natural for the player base to switch and try new things. Champions like the ones you see on screen offer a really fun gameplay with a lot of options on their kits. Riven is one of the only champion of her kind. Other bruisers look similar, but she's very unique in some aspects. Her gameplay is more burst-oriented than any other bruiser in the game. Her mobility used to be unmatched, but as more champions with mobility can go through walls, Riven's wall hopping is no longer special like it used to be. Right now, champions like Kayn or Raken can keep up with Riven mobility with way less effort and more consistency. In previous seasons, Riven had a lot of different setups. She could go Phase Rush, Airy, Predator, Aftershock, Thunderlord, Conqueror, Klepto, Spellbook. You even had the option to go full AD runes, or go Armor Pen runes, to decide if you wanted to play aggressive in the early game or just scale, which made the journey a lot more interactive and rewarding for players. Today, her only viable keystone is Conqueror, since the other ones have been too nerfed, and the champion synergizes better with Conqueror. Your only option right now is doing a few adjustments to your runes. Hydra is a stupid item that forces PvE gameplay. It's OP but boring and very scaling-oriented. Gore Drinker is better on other bruisers than Riven. Recent changes have made it even worse. Hullbreaker is a really toxic item for the top lane. It puts champions that can't build it at a disadvantage. It provides a lot of resistances for no reason, making it difficult for a champion like Riven, with only flat numbers and physical damage in her kit, to contest split pushers whose stats are boosted by this item, Iceborne Gauntlet. This item is overtuned on tanks, making it extremely hard to fight any champion that buys it against Riven. Plated steel caps are really efficient, which makes them OP against Riven. Laning phase used to be more snowballing. Getting early kills was way more beneficial than it is right now. Laning right now is more boring, less rewarding than what it used to be. Riven used to be playable in most matchups. You had more options to approach different matchups, so it was more playable or fun. Riven level 1 used to be the strongest in the game. Very few champions could contest it. Right now, since durability patch, her level 1 is weaker than in the past, even if it's still strong. Against Malphite and Abjax, you used to be able to cancel their empowered auto attack. That's not the case anymore, and this changes were not on patch notes. Riven against tanks summarizes in collecting resources instead of interacting with your enemy laner. Riven currently has a lot of bad matchups, which makes her not as enjoyable as she used to be. Teleport is not bad for Riven, but Ignite fits more her playstyle. Teleport feels too rewarding early game with low death timers, making it less rewarding for champions that benefit from running Ignite and playing aggressive early. As more champions are released, it's normal that more Riven counters appear. She gets hardly countered by crowd control, and right now most of the new champions have crowd control in their kit. Riven is really good against champions with no mobility. However, most new champions have mobility and CC in their kits, which makes it harder for Riven to play the game. During League history, Riot tried to remove some of the Riven mechanics the community called bugs. All the attempts made by Riot failed massively, completely making the champion useless and removing skill expression on her kit, or completely breaking her. Mechanics are not the hard part of Riven. Right now, with Practice Tool and YouTube, everyone can find information about Riven mechanics and learn it in a few weeks. The difficulty of this champion is on her laning, not on the mechanics. Her lack of sustain punishes lane mistakes really hard. Her lack of ability to deal with armor makes it hard in the current days to fight tanks with a really strong first item like Iceborne. If your laning goes bad and you end up behind, the Riven pick just doesn't work. In the old days, it was common to find streamers playing Riven, which is a fact that motivates someone to play the champion. We had Boxbox, Faker, Adrian Riven, Viper, Best Riven NA, and The Shy playing Riven. Some popular Chinese streamers or montages from Junka Riven now proven to be having someone else playing Riven for him and streaming pretending it's him. Today, the only consistent Riven streamers that remain are Viper and Alois. In the Chinese community, the only streamers that remain are Wenshen, who managed to get rank 1 for 7 years in a row on the hardest server filled with one-tricks by playing Riven. Xu Chun, who is a challenger Riven, Zhu Kang, who is a 1600 LP Riven main, Bawan Riven, who's also challenger, and Ruishen, who was the guy who most people know as Junkies Riven. Every time a good Riven uses Q, the direction where the Q goes is 100% intended. The bug will make Riven Q go backwards, which feels extremely bad for the player. I'm aware of the current Riven buffs for next patch. However, the buffs are not needed. Her kit is fine and perfect since the last change. The problem are other champions and game mechanics that should be nerfed or changed, in addition, with no real first item spike that makes her shine over other bruisers of her class. Riven is in a perfectly balanced state. She will be broken when her items are broken, and she feels weak right now because her items are weak, and the items are way better on other champions that don't benefit from damage as much as she does. Thanks for watching.